So from there, let's go to let's talk about Steven Pinker for a minute.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I have a lot more respect for Steven Pinker, and I really enjoyed his book, Enlightenment Now. And he also goes heavy on um lauding secularism and talking about the humanist manifesto and all the benefits that it brings along with it. Well, he he does a similar thing, actually, but he dresses it up a little bit better. He talks about the Humanist Manifesto, and he says straightforwardly that it is not designed to be deep philosophy. And that has a certain amount of appeal, especially in America and some of the modern West, where we're have a strong anti-intellectual streak, and I get that. But to pretend, I mean, the fact he's doing a bunch of philosophy in the rest of his book, and then he's lauding something. He's like, "Oh yeah, well, it doesn't get too philosophical, it's not deep philosophy." It's like, I mean, a lot of people will take that as a positive, but the issue is if you're looking for something to be a foundational central core belief and you think it's not going to be deep philosophically, like that means it's not foundational and core. It's surface level. So I think that's a flaw, much more of a flaw than they in he or the humanist manifesto people realize, because they sort of state it forthrightly like it's a good thing on their side. But he goes through and he states all these precepts of the humanist manifesto. You know, they consider human life as sacred. Like,
You're
okay,
talking
but
about the Humanist Manifesto right now, right?
yes, yeah. He's quoting it in his book, but he's quoting directly from the Humanist Manifesto. He says that one of their values is they consider life to be sacred. Okay, what does sacred mean? If you don't if you don't believe in
Yeah.
God, if you don't believe in a foundation of sacredness, what does sacred mean? Now, okay, well, it doesn't, we're using it metaphorically. It just means that we're going to respect this above all other things. We're going to make sure that human life is our highest value. Okay, but rationalism is already sort of your highest value. So what if rationalism starts pushing arguments against the value of human lives? For example, like in David Benatar, he's very rationalistic. Like, how do you resolve a conflict between rationality and the value of human life if rationality seems to be pretty heavily weighted against human life? If you just start saying, well, we already accept the precept that human life is sacred. Great, now you have a dogma. You have a religious dogma that says human life is sacred because we said so. And then all the people who were attracted to Humanist Manifesto through the want to value rationality and objective inquiry are going to fall on the side of rationality. And they're going to, wait a minute. We're not supposed to be shutting down questions based on dogmas. We're supposed to be following rationality wherever it goes. And then people on the life is sacred side will be like, well, but life's sacred. We shouldn't entertain arguments that go against that. Then you just have a religious dogma set up again where you can't question certain, and the people who are attracted by rationality are going to have the exact same problems with the Humanist Manifesto that they have with any other religion. So it really solves no problem, and it gives intentionally gives a shallow and surface level uh, just statement of faith. So they've solved no problems and they've made their own problems worse. So and I think this is Steven Pinker does the best job at setting it up and defending this sort of view. But even in his own assessment, he's showing these weak links and he doesn't talk about them. He skipped them. Oh, of course we'll value human life. Of course it's good to pursue knowledge. Of course it's good to pursue the continuation of the human species, blah, blah, blah. no actual explanation for why that is, or why we should believe it, or why we should go against rationality that's pointing in the opposite direction, like David Benatar. Basically, I think he just doesn't take any of that seriously and doesn't realize how seriously people are actually moved by that sort of argument.
Would you say though that Steven Pinker comes across as being as nihilistic as, let's say, Benatar or even Harari does? I
No,
mean,
he's
yeah,
definitely not as nihilistic. The problem is he just has no no support, no explanation for why he believes the things that he believes. He believes that it's good to pursue knowledge. He believes that it's good to pursue human flourishing. He believes that life is sacred. That's great. But he's also heavily invested in a tradition that says we are absolute about questioning everything, about asking why of everything, and not settling for dogma. That's like the core of the rationality over religion, people. And then if you end up in a place where rationality goes against human propagation and the worth of human life and meaning and all that, then in Steven Pinker's position, he's only left with, well, that of course that's not true. Why? Because that would be bad if it was true. And we said it's not. We already agreed it's not, so it's not true. Again, it just comes back to a central dogma that they've stated. So the issue isn't that he's as nihilistic, it's that he is the most vulnerable to nihilism. He has no defense against nihilism. And he actually opens his own book with a case of a student who's asking a very nihilistic question. And he gives him a very well worded and nice sounding rationalistic answer that would definitely work for anyone who is already of the mindset of the good modern rationalist who inexplicably considers life as sacred. Great. The problem is people are legitimately bothered by nihilistic considerations. And if you are legitimately bothered by nihilistic considerations and you believe in rationality, then there's no way you're going to settle for life is sacred just because. That's not a good explanation.
so would you say that's the fundamental problem with secularism is that you are more inclined to be vulnerable to a nihilistic belief system?
Yeah, nihilism is like their unwanted child. Like it
Right.
clearly follows from the precepts of secularism, but they don't want to talk about it
And
and they
so
don't want to deal with it.